Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. This is Orphan Last, aka Skylar Madison, and today I'm going to go ahead and work on a Galaxy's Edge piece of fan art. Now, this is a unique image, primarily because I've never illustrated an image like this before, and it was kind of cool. I mean, I mentioned that I wanted to work on this image about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I wanted Rechs to be attacking somebody, but I wanted the camera to be seeing what he's seeing, so it would be a first-person view sort of image. And that it's just been bugging me ever since I mentioned that idea. And I've been wanting to work on it. And so I did a bunch of research on first-person shooters. So I played a hell of a lot of Titanfall 2 for the very first time. And so some of the composition is kind of inspired by kind of the movement system of Titanfall, and because it's action-packed, I'm trying to communicate really fast and abrupt movement in the air and such. And as time wore on, I was kind of posed with this problem. If it's Rechs attacking somebody, but the camera is basically in Rechs' first-person view, how are you supposed to know that it's Rechs that's attacking this dude? Okay? And, you know, there are answers to that question. How do you do it? You could have something that's reflective inside of the scene, like a mirror or maybe a window that is extra reflective, kind of like what you would see on a skyscraper or something like that. But, you know, the only image in my mind initially when sketching out the background was a scene from the movie Hardcore Henry, which was another piece of research that I did, as far as it goes towards people who have done composition in first-person view. Okay, and so that's a Hardcore Henry is a movie that's 100% in the first-person view. And, you know, it's the one movie out of all of them that most definitely resembles a first-person shooter, and has a lot of jumping and really cool action. I can't say the story's any good, but it is very well filmed and such like that. And so the background, it you know, it didn't have anything reflective in it because the only image in my head was a warehouse from the scene where you know, Hardcore Henry is handed a belt full of grenades and stuff, and he has to exit out of this warehouse somehow with all these enemies surrounding him. That sort of, you know, that scene specifically. And so it was really difficult. I mean, this is a case, I guess, where the research inhibited my imagination a little bit because, you know, I put these pillars into the scene because that was inside of the warehouse in Hardcore Henry. And then it was only after the fact that I'm like, okay, maybe a window here or there. Maybe this wall isn't just a flat wall, and maybe have a door here and a window over there. But in the end, as I continued to illustrate the image, it just kind of, I mean, the background looked good, but it wasn't like the emphasis. The emphasis was more so on, okay, let's just imply that there's some sort of background there, and focus on the fact that this is an action scene being viewed from the first-person point of view. And so that's how the final composition kind of winds up being, in terms of my artistic philosophy being oriented around it. And yeah, you can see that I'm making decisions that are independent of the 3D model. I really do treat the 3D model as a sketch, like the positioning of Rechs' right-hand thumb. It's different from the 3D model, and you can see me, you know, sketching on top of it, and sometimes it's a colored layer, like what you see for the belt that goes across his shoulder. And then I go ahead and flesh it out with black inks and such like that, or black digital inks and such. At this point, I wasn't really thinking too much about the light source, but once I decided to make the bottom face there black, I thought, okay, well, I guess, that works as determining where the light source is, because the shaded area of an object is typically on the opposite side of a light source. So, I didn't have any problem with that. It was in sync with the 3D model, and that's light usually comes from above, so that makes sense. Everything made sense, and you can see me kind of just scribbling these little symbols, I guess, that kind of represent detail, or like dents and scratches inside of his on his armor. I gave him a name tag and everything, and this is when I decided, okay, fine, I'm gonna go ahead and do cross-hatching. To be honest, I really don't like cross-hatching, but it makes an image look so stinking good. And so, yeah, and since this is going to be one of the last Galaxy's Edge fan art pieces that I'm going to be working on for a good long while, I wanted to make sure that it had something that made it pop a little bit more. And yeah, still working on the cross-hatching, and the guns were pretty difficult to work out, actually. The gun that winds up being in his right hand, it's not as detailed, but everyone can see it and recognize, okay, yeah, that's a gun. He's got two guns. He's dual wielding pistols and such like that. So, like, since the idea is communicated, how much detail do I really need to emphasize? If the idea is already communicated, how far do I really need to go? It's kind of the thought process that I had. And, like, with some of my more recent images that I've been illustrating, in the past I used to obsess over perfect line work. Don't leave any messes or anything like that. But at this point, it's like, I've been doing this for so long that it just illustrating images. I've been doing it for so long, and doing it semi-professionally for so long that I don't really feel obligated to make every line absolutely perfect. As long as you're able to communicate the idea and integrate the concept of immersion. If you're able to immerse the viewer in what you've illustrated, then you've done everything right. And I'm not saying be sloppy with your line work, because your line work has to be well thought out. My line work was really well thought out, but like if I happen to make a line that wasn't exactly perfect the way that I initially wanted, I would just kind of leave it there, and sometimes I would fix it down the road. But the thing is I oftentimes found that leaving it the way it was opened up the opportunity for some interesting happy accidents. And the designs for the guns, I didn't really feel like this is the image to really, I guess, focus on design concepts for guns and such like that. So I just tried to keep it simple, kind of, as long as it communicates the idea that it's a gun. And you can see me working out a 3D model, and I actually spent a half decent amount of time on this 3D model, but the 3D model itself is not in the same pose as what I don't know, as what's in the image, if that makes sense. But everything that's inside of the frame is in the same pose as what's inside of the image. Anything outside of the composition, that 3D model, its pose is wrong. outside of the composition, which was a first for me. But it seemed to really help out in getting this effect of having the camera be somebody's eyes. I didn't think that I would be able to pull that off, and I did. And that's satisfying. When you set out to challenge yourself, you don't know if you can accomplish it, and then you do. And it's a very satisfying and rewarding experience. One thing that I am kicking myself over is, okay, so Tyrus Rechs is kind of in this mid-ground region of the canvas. You know, he's not in the background, he's not in the foreground, he's in the mid-ground. And he's got all these nice, finely tuned details, but here's this guy in the first-person view. You can see his legs and his right arm, and a little bit of his right hand, right? And I did some cross-hatching on it. The cross-hatching is good, but it's not nearly as cool as the cross-hatching on Tyrus Rechs. And Tyrus Rechs has all of these little dents and scratches on his armor, and I didn't do any of that with the first-person camera character. And I guess maybe that's storytelling in and of itself, in that, well, you know, maybe it's a fresh set of armor and it hasn't had a chance to get scratched and dented and such like that. Maybe this is just some young hotshot attacking Tyrus Rechs. Now, you'll notice that I could have done this, but I didn't. Just simply because I didn't want it to interfere with the composition where the placement of the left leg is. Okay, I could have illustrated the first-person view character's left arm holding the gun, but as time developed, I started to kind of think about that decision. Should I do that? It occurred to me that, Tyrus Rechs is jumping up in the air. Presumably he was facing the opposite direction, so he's twisting around, and he's shooting and missing the first-person character completely, okay? And that's fine that that's the case, but why? Why did he miss? And I'm thinking, since the first-person view character's left arm isn't on the canvas, that in and of itself can be part of the story. Maybe what's most pressing isn't so much to deliver a kill shot as much as it is to disable the person trying to kill Tyrus Rechs. Maybe Tyrus Rechs doesn't want to kill this guy, and so he's shooting at the left arm. Maybe that might be what's going on. Now, you can see me. I wanted to get this grading on the floor here, and this was pretty difficult to do. But and it's really difficult to really even describe what I did to get it to work. But basically, I created a layer, just created a black box, and then drew a bunch of straight lines. Just drew one straight line, and then copied it over and over again at the same measurement. One from the other, one line to the other. And then I copied and pasted all of those lines and then tilted it at an angle. And then I merged those two layers together in order to create the grading there at the bottom. Now, I used absolute 100% white, but I eventually wound up using a gradient map in order to turn that layer's pure white into being a gray, and then merged that correction layer in with the grading and stuff. And then I went ahead and merged that with the background layer, and everything worked out pretty good, I think. Inside of the red dot sight, I decided to lower the opacity of objects. And looking back at this decision, it's not, I mean, it has the right effect as long as it's a black and white image, right? However, what I should have done is just use a gradient map, and instead of having it be pure black at the very tail end or left side of the gradient map, I should have just changed it to just a little bit of a lighter gray or a dark gray, so that it has the exact same look as when you lower the opacity. And so everything's just fine. I'm not disappointed with it at all. It looks great. You can see I decided to add muzzle flashes for the first-person view camera gun. You know, when I played Battlefield 4, it was only when I was using something like a sniper rifle that I could actually see the bullet being projected from the gun, or when I was in, I guess, to some extent, hip fire, I would sometimes see the actual tracer of the bullet. And so I didn't really feel like it was really all that pressing for me to draw some tracer for that gun. And I also thought about, well, wait a second here. The muzzle flash can be yellow, but this is a sci-fi universe, so maybe the projectile coming out of the gun, maybe it shouldn't be a projectile. Maybe it should be a laser, so maybe it should be red. And I think in some cases inside of Galaxy's Edge, maybe that's cool. That'd be a good decision. But who says all, I guess, like, whatever weapon it is, whether, like, instead of Star Wars, their lasers are actually a type of plasma. Who says all plasma has to be red or green or what have you? Like, who says that this type of projectile plasma or whatever is at least in Galaxy's Edge? Who says it has to be that? Why can't it be white? Why can't one of these plasma weapons or laser beams or whatever, why can't they actually be white and actually look like a tracer to a bullet, so that they can actually, like, people are unsure whether or not they're being attacked by an energy weapon or with a projectile weapon with bullets and such. And in one of my Galaxy's Edge images, I decided to give Tyrus Rex's armor kind of a BDU, a battle dress uniform sort of pattern, with the the camouflage stuff. And I was kind of hesitant to put it into this image, but I did it after all. I just think it fits inside of Galaxy's Edge. It makes sense. I mean, the whole shebang, Galaxy's Edge, is all about the military. It's like having Star Wars that's 100% focused on the stormtroopers, okay? So the idea of having soldiers that are just wearing these gray or white uniforms and then a new uniform, it doesn't make sense. But whereas it does make sense that they might paint their own camouflage onto their uniform when needed. If they're in a desert environment, they'd paint their own armor to fit inside of the desert and such like that. And so I think this is coming along pretty well. You can see that I'm using the gradient map technique to color 99% of the image. There are a few things that weren't gradient map, but just me using the actual paint color, I guess, on an independent layer and keeping it kind of at the top of the stacking order. And most of that was just the muzzle flashes, where I was using the actual color and using my brush to put it down. And here you can see Tyrus Rechs. He just looks so good. And I made the back, I wanted there to be contrast, so I made the background darker. And I think this makes an action-packed scene, makes the first-person view camera character feel as though he's been suppressed, maybe injured. I like it. This looks awesome. I love this picture. Anyways, guys, that pretty much concludes it for this video. If you guys enjoyed it, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. And if you guys would like to get more notifications from me, feel free to join my Discord server. A link to my Discord server is in the video description below. If you'd like to support this channel, there's an image of a t-shirt in the upper right corner of the screen. It leads to my Teespring. Any support with the purchase of a t-shirt would be much appreciated. And if you've enjoyed this content and would like to see more, feel free to click on anything else that's appearing on the screen right now. Thank you very much for your time.